Yep. Yep. She was texting me when you were having breakfast.
It was
I
pretty
can show
funny.
you my,
Yep. Awesome.
this is my, right now it's James Joyce, but it'll be different soon.
Morning, Brett. It's good to see you.
I did say good to see you too. I was just muted.
I felt the good to see you too energy coming from your screen though, so it's all good. Hey folks, so we'll give it just a couple more minutes to get kicked off. We have two awesome speakers, and I see Kristen also just hopped on. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning. Morning, Robert Shaw. How you doing?
I'm good. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. Haven't seen you in a while, so just thought I recognized that you had joined. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you.
Elizabeth, it was so much fun chatting with you and learning about all the work that you're doing. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you as well. Thank you. It was lovely chatting with you. Great things ahead for everyone.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, we're gonna give everyone just a couple of minutes to join. If you are just joining us, welcome. We have a really exciting lineup and we're just gonna wait a couple more minutes to get started to let people hop on the call.
Is Kathy on the call yet?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Kathy from Canada, congratulations.
I know.
I immediately thought of you when I saw it.
Sharon, you must have missed it.
Olympics.
What are we talking about?
Canadian women's soccer team, so girls, won the gold against Sweden.
And the decathlon winner is from Canada.
The decathlon winner and the men's 200 meter winner, and they got bronze this morning in the 4x100 relay. Oh yeah, go. But the soccer is personally attached to me because I have a colleague whose daughter made it onto the practice squad for that team. So she didn't actually get to go to Tokyo, but she was very close.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Animal Welfare Leadership Roundup. We have an exciting agenda today with some really important topics, especially in this current moment with housing issues. But before we get started into the agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Smith from Maddie's Fund.
Good morning, everybody. It's so amazing to see you all. I think one of the best things is to log on early, and then you get to say good morning to everybody. And it's such a wonderful thing to do. It just reminds me that even virtually, connections can be real and meaningful and inspiring. So thank you all for being here this morning. A couple weeks ago, I told you the story about Leslie, who was a retired police officer who was turned down 16 times in her efforts to adopt a dog. And at that point, she was so frustrated that she started to consider going to a breeder. And recently, she met up with James Evans from CARE. And she said, if any of us are willing to help her, she would consider adopting. And she's looking for a big dog. Isn't that kind of amazing? A retired police officer, and she wants a big dog. She has a fondness in her heart for Great Danes or Great Dane mixes, young dogs. If anyone is able and willing to help her, could you please reach out to Mike Ricker at CARE? And that's Michael at CARE awo.org and let him know that you can help her. It's such a great opportunity for us to get a second chance. How often do we get mulligans in our line of work? Not very often. So this could be really, we could turn this into an amazing happy ending if that's possible. So if you're serious and can help her and want to, please reach out to Mike Bricker. And you might be thinking, oh my God, why are we still talking about this? And I just want to remind you that the reason we're all on these calls is because we were confronted 18 months ago with a situation that we didn't have any solutions for. But when we came together and could talk about what the problems look like for each of us, we were also able to figure out what was the next right thing for us to do for that day. And sometimes the next day we would have to come back and figure that out for that day and for the next day and for the day after that. Until 18 months later, we're here really talking about trying to do things completely differently. And that includes the way we do adoptions. Now, in a couple weeks, Maddie's Fund and Michelson Found Animals and a whole bunch of other organizations are coming together to put out a new challenge grant, and it's all about open adoptions. And I couldn't think of anything more timely for us, because when we can start to challenge those assumptions from what we used to do, we can figure out how we can do something better, differently, more effectively. And most of all, how we can provide the services that our organizations have to the largest number of people available. So thank you all. I hope you have a great weekend. Remember, be kind to yourself, to each other, and to those you don't even know. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Mary. So before we get started with our speakers today, I just want to take a second to turn it over to our national organizations who may be on the call and have an update for us. So jump right in.
Hi, everybody. This is Valerie Shepard from the Association for Animal Welfare Advancement. I've got two announcements. One, and I'll put the link in the chat. Wanted to call your attention to a great blog that Gina Knepp from Michelson and Catherine Shinar, my boss, wrote called 39 Things Your Shelter Can Do Right Now to Reunite Lost Pets. So great blog, just full of tips. And I'm hitting send on the link. So please read that and share it widely. Then also, the association is doing a 4-part roundtable series with the ASPCA. We just had the first session yesterday about housing, and it was great, and the recording is available. But I want to invite you to the next session next week, next Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's called Beyond Best Practices, How to Make Big Changes Happen. And it features guests from Better Together Animal Alliance, Humane Society of Western Montana, Tricia from the Northern Tier Shelter Initiative at the A, and also Karen Walsh from the A. So it should be a real interesting conversation. I'll stick the link for that into the chat. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Hey there, excuse me, Krista with the Humane Society of the United States. Just wanted to mention that next Friday is our deadline for session proposal submissions for Animal Care Expo 2022, which will be in Orlando, April 19th through the 22nd of next year. So if you're interested in speaking, I'll put a link in the chat and please take a look. Thanks.
Hey everybody, Kathy from Canada here. Just letting you know that the registration for the Humane Canada Summit mini event, The Effects of Climate Change on Animal Welfare, which goes virtual and runs on the 15th of September, just opened up. So I'll drop the link in the chat. Hope to see you there.
Hi, everybody. Real quick, this is Amy Nichols. So I'm formerly, as of about a month ago, from HSUS and missing working with Krista, who just talked to you. And I am now with Kinship, which is a company, a division of Mars. And so some of you may be aware, we recently partnered with Shelter Animals Count to be their technology partner. And we have a lot of other things in the works. And I represent your contact into kinship. So I'll be working on all things animal welfare and also the pet care industry. So thanks so much.
Okay, great. Well, I want to welcome our first speaker today. Steve Feldman is here from HABRI. I don't think there's anyone we have worked harder and longer to get on this call, because HABRI is such a critically important organization and one many of us don't get to interface with often. And Suzanne Koga of Petco Love helped make this happen, as did a few other folks. So we're so excited to have Steve here today, talking about the work of HABRI and particularly touching on some of their work to study and create more pet inclusive housing. So Steve, welcome to the call. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Hope everybody can see the screen. I'm really excited to get to know this group, and I'm hoping, most of all, aside from sharing some data, that we get the chance to work together more, that there's collaborations and partnerships that come out of this. I also want to acknowledge Brett Yates from Michelson Found Animals. We're going to go into a shared program that we have together on housing. But at first, I thought I'd just start off, as I always do, with just a little background on the human-animal bond. It means sometimes different things to different people. I think everyone here certainly lives it every day. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the human-animal bond, then a little bit about public policy with a real emphasis on housing, and then hopefully have some discussion and Q&A. But feel free to, I can't say I'll be watching the chat carefully. So Kristen, if you notice a question, that just pop right in and read that to me if you don't mind. So first of all, I always use the AVMA definition of the human-animal bond, that it's this mutually beneficial and dynamic relationship between pets and people that's good for both of us. It influences both of us. And in fact, it's so important that the National Institutes of Health put out this statement, which said that no future study of human health is complete unless we take into account the presence of pets in the home and the relationship that we have with them. So, and that's where we come in, because of course NIH made this statement and then they didn't do it. So our vision is that the human-animal bond is universally embraced as an essential part of human wellness. So I always say, you probably ate your fruits and vegetables today, or you're about to. This is like the 45 minutes of the year when tomatoes taste good. So you eat your vegetables, right? Because they're good for you. And you get your exercise, right? You go for a walk, go to walk your dog, right? Because it's also, it's good for you, right? Well, owning a pet is also good for you, and we have science to show that. So that's our vision, that everybody knows, eat a salad, go to the gym, get a pet, all belong on the same list when it comes to being a healthy person. And the way we're going to do that, of course, is through, first of all, science. Research is in our name, but then we use that science to drive education and advocacy, so that everybody knows how important the human-animal bond is for pets and people and the communities where they live. And so just a little slide to brag about HABRI just a little bit. We've created, in partnership with Purdue University, the largest library of human-animal interaction science. So if you're looking for the study, you're going to find it at habricentral.org. On the HABRI website, the habri.org website, we've curated some of the most important studies, but you can go there and you can find anything. We've hit the $3 million mark in our research funding. We have an annual call for proposals, and we fund the best proposals that study the human-animal bond and our relationship. And we're starting to get recognized in policy circles. We're pushing it all out there, especially during the pandemic on social media, really taking the dense science, turning it into finished content. And during our last strategic planning, we realized that we were pulling together different parts of the pet care community that really weren't talking to each other. So we were accidental conveners of this large group of people. And then we said, okay, let's do that more deliberately so that we can take on the bigger issues facing society, especially where they intersect with the human-animal bond. And so these are the companies and organizations that are supplying the support to HABRI. Those 9 organizations across the top are our board of trustees. But you'll see that we have the vet side and the pet side and the retail side. PetSmart Charities, Petco Foundation are on our board. I think there's an opportunity to bring this group and the group represented on this call together to work on a lot of big issues together. So why is the human animal bond so powerful? You may have heard of the biophilia hypothesis, which is that our brains are hardwired to connect with other animals, right? Again, you're feeling it every day, but it has a name, right? That we connect, we've evolved to connect with other animals. And it's been a coevolution. You've all seen the cave paintings from, 40,000 years ago. Not to leave out the cats, there's the Egyptian cat, but the fact is that we've evolved together, and we've also, it's not pure evolution, but our pets have changed, which is how we've gotten from this to this. And by the way, the reason is this: we've made our pets more like our children. I mean, look at the large rounded head and the eyes and which of these 2 pictures look more alike, right? And so we've evolved, and our pets have evolved to be more like a child relationship. And as a matter of fact, pets as family, pets as our children is fairly common now. And the good news is that something is happening, that when we're interacting with our pets, our brain chemistry changes. Our oxytocin, prolactin, dopamine go up, and our cortisol, our stress hormones, go down, right? And the scientists go crazy when I say this, but this is the chemical cocktail for love, because the same thing is happening in our dogs' brains, right? So this is why the human animal bond is so powerful across so many different human conditions. So just a quick review of the research. You probably are all familiar that the American Heart Association put out a statement in 2013 that pets are good for heart health. But again, not to leave the cat lovers out, my favorite study from Dr. Erica Friedman at University of Maryland found that you were more likely to be alive, 40% more likely to be alive after a heart attack 1 year later if you had a cat. So, and of course, I think during the pandemic, mental health has become a huge focus. But this study by Helen Brooks that I have cited at the bottom says that this isn't a nice to have, that pets are important to the long-term management of mental health. And increasingly what you're seeing is mental health providers incorporating pets into treatment plans. These 2 organizations are partners of ours because I think it's really important that we're just not just animal people talking to each other, right? That we get out there in the world with this information and this message. Pets are important for children, not just dogs and cats, but rabbits and guinea pigs and smaller animals in the classroom actually help improve classroom behavior and performance. And one of my favorite studies out of Sweden, which has a national dog registry and a national healthcare system, enabled them to measure 3.4 million people over 12 years and found that dog ownership is associated with longer life, especially for people who live alone. And in fact, pets and loneliness is a huge issue right now because we had an epidemic of loneliness prior to the pandemic, and it's only gotten worse. So pets have become a lifeline for so many people during the pandemic. So I'm talking about how pets are good for us, but there's this important halo effect. We asked people, if you knew more about the science behind the human animal bond, how would that change your behavior? They'd be less likely to give up their pet for any reason. They'd be more likely to microchip their pets. They'd keep up with their vaccines and preventive medicine and be more likely to purchase pet health insurance. And basically on all these measures, the millennials and the younger pet owners sort of outperform the older pet owners. So if you are talking about how pets are good for people and the science behind it, it actually makes them better pet owners. It improves the care and welfare of the animals themselves. So we're also using this information to drive policy change. I hope many of you are familiar with the Pet and Women's Safety Act, which passed at the end of 2018. And then at the end of 2019, we got our first $2 million in federal money. And then for this year, $2.5 million to make domestic violence shelters more pet friendly. I think there's real opportunities for partnerships between animal welfare organizations and domestic violence shelters. You have the expertise in housing and caring for these animals, but only about 15% of domestic violence shelters actually have the capability to take in victims and their pets. So the victims of domestic violence won't leave a bad situation if the pet can't come with them. And so now there's a federal grant process to actually inject money into the system so that people can make these domestic violence shelters more pet friendly. I think there's a real opportunity for everyone. And we're going for the full $3 million that was authorized for this year's appropriations in Congress. So, and we're taking those companies and organizations that you saw on that other slide are actively working towards this. And I know some of you are as well. And so it's an important ongoing effort to make sure this is fully funded. We're almost there in terms of getting money for federal money for service dogs for veterans with post-traumatic stress. We funded one of the most important studies showing the benefits of service dogs for soldiers with PTSD. And now that was, by the way, that's me testifying with a dog, but all they wanted to do was take a picture of the dog under the table. And it's passed the House, and we're hoping that we can get it past the Senate before the end of this year and actually get the money. So we're leveraging the science of the human-animal bond to change policy. I want to invite all of you to either participate virtually and possibly in person in Pet Week on Capitol Hill. So we took over Pet Week on Capitol Hill from the Animal Health Institute about 6 years ago. It was this pet night on Capitol Hill. It was this big reception. Look at all those unmasked people in a small room. And so last year we expanded. We said, we can't do Pet Night, let's do Pet Week. And we had over 10,000 people, many congressional staffers, members of Congress participating virtually. So this year we're going to do Pet Week, the week of October 18th. And if we're lucky, we're going to do Pet Night also on the night of October 20th. We've got a room reserved, and we're just watching to see what happens with the pandemic and the security situation on Capitol Hill. But I invite you all to participate and to look at this content, because it's our opportunity to tell members of Congress how important pets are in our lives. All right, so it wouldn't be a complete presentation without talking about the pandemic, of course. So I was just at my vet's office yesterday, and the schedule boards are full. They can't hire, vet techs are like unicorns right now. You can't even find one. And it's because we've all spent all this time with our pets, and we've noticed more about their care. And there's no going back, right? The human-animal bond is stronger than ever before when it comes to our relationship, and that's changing things, right? And I should say, as I see Kristen taking a picture, I'll give you the slides, don't worry. So it's changing our relationship with our pets, and that's going to have external impacts. One impact is workplace. We're not going to want to leave our pets behind. We're going to demand the flexibility to work from home or to have pet-friendly workplaces. We actually, prior to the pandemic, prepared some resources for companies that could become more pet-friendly, but we're actually redoing and recasting those resources right now in light of COVID, because we think there'll be a huge demand for pet-friendly workplaces. So it's where we work and where we live. And that takes me to the Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative. And so Brett, I see you on the call. If you want to jump in at any point and fill in anything I've missed, please do. We were so fortunate to partner with Michelson Found Animals to create the Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative. And it all starts with data. We did a deep dive survey of both renters and housing owner operators to find out what's really going on with pet-friendly housing. And from that was born the Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative. And just a few weeks ago, we released a comprehensive report on the data, which I encourage you all to go and to petsandhousing.org and download. I'm going to just pull a few slides from the data today to show you, just to spark some conversation. But there's an awful lot more here for us to than we can cover in 20 minutes. So first of all, it should be no surprise to you that pet-friendly housing is too expensive and hard to find, at least according to renters. And by the way, the renters we spoke to were in urban and suburban environments. We didn't really want to talk about a lot of farm dogs, although that's a whole different thing. And it was too expensive and it was hard to find. But when we asked property owners, they said, of course, we're pet friendly. But then we dug deeper and we said, well, some allow only cats and some allow only dogs. And if you look on the restrictions, half of the ones that allow dogs restrict breed and size, right? And many restrict the number of pets. And, you know, you could say, okay, 20 cats in a small apartment might be too much, but you could go from 1 to 2. And when we broke it down and filtered it all out, only 8% of properties were completely unrestricted. And by the way, many of these were single family homes. As a matter of fact, when we looked at these restrictions across types of housing, so single family homes, high rise, garden style apartments, we found that the high rise were most restricted, right? And I want to call your attention to those boxes on the top there. The average weight limit across all types of housing was 45 pounds. But even in single family homes, it was a 55-pound average weight limit. So we were just talking about big dogs earlier on this call. There's no reason for that. And there's no reason for breed restrictions. There's no data behind any of that. So we need to just ease back on these restrictions. And why is that important? Because 33% of the people who already had pets and 35% of the people, we surveyed some renters who didn't yet have pets, said that if restrictions were eased, they would get a pet or another pet. And when you extrapolate these numbers to the universe of renters, that comes out to more than 8 million animals, a suppressed demand for pets. Now you throw on top of that the disruptions caused by COVID. We've got these on again, off again, hopefully on again for a while, eviction moratorium. But eventually there's going to be this great disruption, and it's going to be even harder for pet owners to find appropriate housing. And I don't have the slide on this, but it's going to be especially hard for low-income pet owners to find appropriate housing. So we want to keep people in their homes and we want to keep pets in their homes. The 14% of the people in our survey said they'd had to surrender a pet at some point because of their housing situation. And the number one thing really was that they hadn't broken the rules, but that they feared that they had broken the rules. So fear is a big factor here. We got to educate people. So our approach, though, is to make the economic case for pet-friendly housing. That's one thing I really want to emphasize when I talk about our pet inclusive housing initiative, is that we're not going to beat housing providers over the head with new regulations and really try and bully them into doing the right thing. The idea is to use market forces and persuade them to do the right thing. Pet-friendly rental units are easier to fill. They fill more quickly. And then the people stay longer. So they're, you know, when a unit is full, it makes money. So our idea, and I've got to say, Michelson Found Animals has invested a tremendous amount in building relationships within the housing provider community. So that's what's different about this campaign. And I guess if any of you are more on the sort of regulatory side on this, we're looking for the space, HABRI and Michelson, to really try and try market force persuasion. We think that's going to really produce results. And why do we think that's going to produce results? Because it turns out that owner and operators of housing love pets just as much as we do, right? Everyone believes that pets bring people together as a community. And that pets are family. By the way, that 92% number in the middle is everyone, including non-pet owners who believe that pets are family. And that pets bring us closer to our neighbors. So we can make the case based on the human-animal bond that everybody loves pets, and we can make the economic case. And so that's what we're going to do, is really try and use a market-based approach, a relationship-based approach when it comes to housing owner operators. Brett, did you want to cut in and say anything at this point?
You know, I think with this particular industry, I think it's great that there are a lot of people putting pressure on owners, operators, and encouraging them to change their ways. We've intentionally chosen to be inside the building with them and being a resource for them. So I think it's going to be great to have both parties working on them simultaneously. So if you're out there putting pressure on them to change their ways, keep going. I think we've chosen the opposite side so that we can work from the inside out, and it'll take all of us to make it happen.
Thank you. I think that's well said. And so I could have done 50 slides. That's how deep the data goes. And a lot of most of it is in that report, which is downloadable, and you can all find it on the Pets and Housing website. So let me just bring it on home here by saying, you know, the human animal bond can drive change, right? I think we're going to see an acceleration of trends where pets are acknowledged for their impact on mental health. They're going to become our permanent coworkers, right? We're not going to go back. And this demand for pet inclusive housing and, you know, for pets where we work and live essentially will grow, as well as the demand for high quality pet care. And this is, again, we're seeing this trend, especially in millennial and Gen Z pet owners, that, you know, these are their children and they want healthcare for their animals like their children. And all of this can be used to create a more pet-friendly society and drive those proactive policies that support pet owners. So you guys are living this every day. You know, we do the research at HABRI to show why what you do with your paws on the ground work is so important. And you're the key messengers. So I hope you'll take the powerful science that we're developing and kind of infuse that into your communications, because it really can help you drive change out there in the world. And so I hope we'll stay connected. I had to have one picture of my cat. This is Winifred staring out at the rain. And she was adopted last May. So she's about a little over a year old now. So I got a pandemic pet also. But I hope you'll sign up for our newsletter and follow us on social media. And I'm at sfeldman@habri.org. I would love to hear from any of you who are interested in what we do.
Okay, so I have to say, watching that, it makes me a little bit emotional because it really points to that rather than having a pet problem, we have a housing problem. I remember Stacy Coleman of Animal Farm Foundation 5 years ago saying housing was going to be the fight of the next decade. Do you agree with that, Steve? And how do we that are just here trying to help animals, and many of us just like on the ground in shelters, what do we do? It feels like we're helpless sometimes.
Well, so the housing is really interesting. So on the high end, right, for the more affluent pet owners, you see that there's really not a pets and housing problem, right? The high end apartment buildings are putting in dog wash stations and dog runs and all, you know, and the poop bags and everything that they need to attract pet owners because they've already gotten the economic message here. I think we're going to really see the need for policy change at the other end of the spectrum. In 1988, by the way, Congress made all publicly funded housing pet friendly. But the rules put forward by the Department of Housing and Urban Development allow housing providers to limit each apartment to one pet. What if we just got them to change to two? Right? What if we and they're allowed to have breed and size restrictions. So what if we changed, some incremental changes in policies are going to make a lot more space. So I think the bigger challenge is this. In everything we see, about 40% of pet owners have household incomes under $50,000, right? And I think the term responsible pet ownership is loaded because everything we see in our data is that those low-income pet owners have stronger human-animal bonds. They love their pets as much, if not more, than more wealthy pet owners. And they're actually spending more of their, as a percentage of their household income on their pets. So how do we make sure that those really committed pet owners get the support that they need? And we don't want to judge them as somehow not being able to care for their pets. We sort of have to democratize pets in a way that allows them to access housing and veterinary services and everything they need to be good pet owners.
Hey, Steve, there's a couple comments that have come in the chat.
Go ahead, Brett.
Shannon, do you want to make a comment?
Yes, good morning. My name is Shannon Asquith. I'm the Executive Director of Heaven on Earth. We're a small cat rescue in North Hollywood. I'm also a landlord, and so I'm going to risk here kind of throwing that perspective out, so bear with me. I've owned rental property for 20 years, and I just want to share that I had a really unfortunate situation where I was actually renting to a very good friend who was also in animal welfare and had been so for 20 years like I had. She had 4 dogs from 4 different hoarding and rescue situations throughout the country. I rented to her because I cared about her and her dogs. And I gave her a significant discount on the pet deposit. I was subsequently, I just have to share that I felt very burned. The way she destroyed my house was really inconceivable. Thousands of dollars of damage. The urine from the dogs permanently stained my red oak hardwood floors, which were, from the 1947 when my house was built. And so from a landlord perspective, I think it would be great to maybe bring those landlords in and to hear their concerns. And I would even love to be part of maybe a conversation where the landlords are also being given, being heard. I want to rent to people with pets, obviously, and I'll continue to try and do that. But when you're looking at thousands of dollars of expensive repairs from somebody that you trusted and rescue dogs that you cared about. Anyway.
Shannon, I hear you, and I want to just make sure we leave. Time is passing quickly, and so Shannon, maybe we can get you in touch with the folks working on this. It's really important.
Can I just say one thing from the data though, Kristen?
Yep.
And that is this. So first of all, Shannon, not to minimize your experience, right? It's horrible, and I'm sorry that it happened. Our data shows this, that 9% of people said that their pets had caused damage. And of those, 7% paid for the damages themselves. Only 2% of the folks who had their pets cause damage had a security deposit deduction. The issue, of course, is that instead of planning for the average, right, which is what you see in our data, people plan for the worst case scenario, right, for the terrible situation you found yourself in. So how do we let people know that in the vast majority of cases that's not going to necessarily be happening? I don't want to minimize your experience, but I just wanted to share what the data said.
I have a question. Can I ask a question, Kristen? So Stephen, thank you so much. That was amazing information, and we love your work, of course. I think one of the underlying causes, though, and that I like the statistics of the minimal damage, but I also feel that the issue with pet-friendly housing is probably from those pet owners who don't have training access, right? So their dogs are barking, they have separation anxiety. It's a training issue, and that perhaps bothers neighbors, and then the landlords are like, no pets, right? So I'm just wondering, in your work, is there any talk or discussion about that side of it? Because I think Shannon brings up good points as well. It's also a two-sided street there. I'm a pet-friendly landlord also.
Sure. Well, certainly behavior comes kind of in the middle of our reasons when we started exploring some of the detriments of pet-friendly housing. It turns out that people would much rather have a neighbor with pets than college-age neighbors. And pets and families with children are running about even. So we were looking at, is this a real problem? And so sometimes it is, but not as much as you might think, again, in the aggregate. So again, come to HABRI.org, reach out to me, Kristen, and to everyone in the group. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful to be with you today, and I hope we get to connect again.
Hey, Steve, can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
That I think is important here. I've been hearing all over, oh, the dogs in shelters are pit bulls and no one wants them. So we need a new strategy. And I hate to call that out because it's kind of an awful thing to say, but it's frequently said within animal welfare. But what your data says is that most housing is restricting pets over 45 pounds. So what do you say to the pit bull, the question that kind of raises its head quite often?
So there's no data that we could uncover that showed that those particular animals, that particular group of animals causes more damage or injury. Most people are required to have pet renter's insurance. Renter's insurance covers any damage or injury that your pet might cause. And you can find an awful lot of policies that don't have any restrictions. So there are solutions.
Okay, thank you so much. And we hope you'll be back on these calls because the work you're doing is, you're like our great hope for so much of the challenge that we face, that people who want animals literally can't get them because they can't live with them. So thank you for the work that you're doing. And thanks to Michelson and Brett for being here and for supporting this work. It's so important. Want to turn now. So we're going to just a brief interlude. We have a couple of poll questions. This is a hard moment. I don't know about you, but it kind of hit me this week that these Delta and Lambda variants are terrifying. It feels like we're on another precipice. We have some poll questions kind of about what you're dealing with. So we're going to launch those really quickly. And if you don't mind, this data helps us know what's actually happening on the ground so that we can address the biggest issue. So we put these all into one quick poll so you can do them together. The first question is, what is your greatest challenge in this moment? Number of animals in care, short staffing, slowing outcomes, compassion fatigue, stress, burnout. If your answer is other, you can go ahead and write that in the chat. Number two, what is your current approximate vacancy rate? And we mean this staff vacancy rate. So how many of your positions are empty? If you don't know the exact percentage, it's fine to guess, but we're hearing about high vacancy rates. And so we want to get a better idea of what the reality is there. And if you have an answer that isn't captured here or your answer is more complicated, you can write that in the chat as well. And relative to July 2019 or August 2019, we wrote these last week. My shelter is significantly less full, at roughly the same capacity, more full, or significantly more full. So 2 years ago to now, what is it really looking like in terms of population difference? Or do you have more animals or fewer? So if you could take a minute and just fill out those poll questions for us, we're going to use these to help lay out our conversation over the next couple of weeks to talk about the current issues, because a lot of folks are feeling the struggling now with COVID variants emerging. We may see some of those impacts increase. And while we're waiting on those poll results, I just want to add our one update about these calls. Thanks so much to Maddie's Fund and other organizations who have been getting the word out. We're doing our best to bring you the highest quality speakers in our movement, and you all have helped us bring some amazing folks here. But July was our highest number of attendees to the Friday calls all year. So thank you to everybody who did bring someone to the calls. Thank you for coming, and please, we have about 2,000 people that have been to one or more calls. So we want to keep those numbers going, and please feel free to invite other leaders to the calls every week. The more of us that are here, the better. So Allison, do we have those poll results? Okay. Greatest challenge, it looks like short staffing is huge, followed by compassion fatigue, stress, and burnout. Interesting. Slowing outcomes is not as big of a factor as we thought it might have been. Animals in care, number of animals in care is about 20%. What is your current approximate vacancy rate? Under 10% is 54. That's good news. Followed by, it looks like 18% of you have 11 to 15% vacancy rate. And then 21 to 25% is about 12% of you. And then relative to the same time, 2019, my shelter is roughly the same capacity. And then it looks like on either end, we have more full, less full at about 21 to 25%, and then significantly more full is 18%. So this is really helpful. And we're going to be talking next week about the July data and getting some of our data geniuses back to tell us what the numbers are saying. So thanks for that. We're going to turn now to April Huntsman, who has come to tell us that our websites all could use a little bit of love, to put it nicely. April, we were in conversation about data in general, and she's like, oh my gosh, there's so much that you all could be doing. So she's here to tell us what that is. So April, welcome to the call, and thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we give a lot of love to the animals that come through our care and to our volunteers, and we probably need to start spreading some of that love. So I'm going to talk fairly fast through this. There's no way I could possibly cover everything that you could do or should do, but this is going to give you some ideas. So I'm going to quickly talk about why we should care and just update everybody on the numbers around the World Wide Web. A very basic overview, and then I'm going to give you guys some homework. So the idea here is that you get this quick 10-minute information and you have something to do.
When do you leave?
Oh, sorry, somebody's not muted. Okay, so I'm going to start with a quick analogy because when I start saying the words keywords and SEO and SERP and all of these terms, everybody's eyes kind of start crossing and everybody picks up their cell phone and starts Googling. So the analogy I'm going to give you guys is, imagine that you just landed in a new city and you forgot deodorant and you've got to get to the store, and you hop in your rental car and you realize the only thing you have is what deodorant you need and the address of the store. How are you going to get to the store? Well, you have an address, so you're going to use street signs and hopefully navigate to the store. By the time you get to the store, you're going to be really frustrated, right? Because it took you a long time to get there. You had to sort it out, and hopefully they have what you're looking for. And when we start talking about SEO, it's basically like giving you navigation. So you've landed, you type in where you're going, and then that navigation is basically going to get you there. You don't even have to think about it. So this is so important when it comes to your websites, because if people are on the World Wide Web and they're searching things and they can't find you, or if it takes them a long time to find you, one, they're frustrated, or two, they're not actually getting to the programs and services that you offer. So are you having the largest impact that you can have on your community? Probably not. So let's just talk about some numbers. These are all updated through 2021. We now spend 8 hours a day on digital activities. We spend the same amount of time on digital activities that we do sleeping. This is up from 6 hours in 2019. 97% of people go online to find and research businesses. So the first thing we do when we need something is we pick up our phones and we Google it. 96% of 18 to 64-year-olds use the internet. So there's been kind of this myth out there that like, oh, people don't use the internet. Nope, they use the internet. And 75% of people over 65 years of age are using the internet. So even our older retired people are actually coming to the internet to find the information that they need. So that's a demographic of people who are looking for pets. 86% of household incomes under $30,000 a year use the internet. That's another myth, that if you have a low income, you're not using the internet because you don't have access to it. 86% of those people are using the internet, and 98% of people with an income over 50,000 use the internet. 65% of users start on their smartphone. So this is when we talk about being mobile optimized and having apps and things like that. That's the majority, over half, are using their smartphone, while only 25% are starting on a PC laptop. So when you're thinking about your website, you need to be thinking about what does it look like on a smartphone first, not what does it look like on a PC or a laptop. And then 86% of all searches are through Google. So we could talk about all the other search engines and browsers, but today I'm only going to be talking about Google because that's where the majority of the searches are being done. And the internet is the first place that a person's going to find information and resources because that's where we start. So this is where they're going to start to have an impression of your organization, if they can even find your organization. So it's really, really important. That's why I'm here today. So I'm going to now give you the basics of the basics. There's so much information out there about SEO and keywords and all of those things. So I'm going to just talk about the very basic things to give you some homework today. So when we think about the consideration of the search results, you're going to hear SEO, search engine optimization. The number one thing that's looked at is the quality and relevancy of the content on your website. So if you don't have high quality relevant content, you're already going to have a big ding. But then the next thing is your URL structure. So I don't think a lot of us realize when we create URLs that by having like .php or index or some random word in there, that's actually impacting whether or not your website is showing up in the search results. The next thing is called a website meta title or title tag. I'm going to show you how you can see what that is for your website. That's information that Google is using to crawl the internet and index to give search results when people are searching key phrases. There's also a website meta description. That's a longer description that's also being used. And then another big piece here is the number and quality of other websites that link to your website. That builds credibility online. And so if you have a lot of other credible websites linking back to your website, then your SEO results go up. And then there's a bunch of other considerations, including user engagement. Do people bounce? How many times do they click on your page? How fast is your page upload? Is there unique content? Basically, it's pretty complicated, but we have a place we can start. So we're going to start at the top of the things that matter the most. So I'm going to show you guys a quick video just to kind of explain how the search results work. And I'm going to show you what happens when we change just one word in my phrase. So I'm located in Salt Lake. So Google knows this based off my IP address. And it's giving me the results. It's giving me ads. It's giving me what other people ask. PAA, you're going to want to know that. People also ask. I get Animal Humane Society, which isn't even located in Salt Lake. I get Rehome. I get Because Animals Matter, which is in Southern Utah. So I'm not actually getting results that are helpful for me because I'm not going to surrender my pet in Minnesota. Now, when I change just that one word from surrender to rehome, now I'm starting to get rehome by adoptpet.com because we have really high SEO. So the web, crawls and finds us. And I don't actually get to a shelter, I think, until the 8th result. I'm getting to national organizations. And you can see here how important the key word there is going from rehome to surrender and why it's so important to understand what users are searching versus what your internal terminology is. Now, how do you know what people are searching? Well, there's this free tool that you guys can go crazy with. It's trends.google.com. And you can actually put in phrases and see over a period of time if those are what people are searching. So I wanted to see, are people searching surrender my dog, rehome my dog, or get rid of my dog? And what you can see here is basically the number 100 is just, that means that's the peak searches for that. But people coming on the internet are not searching surrender my dog and rehome my dog as often as they are searching get rid of my dog. So if your website does not have SEO for get rid of my dog, they may not be finding you to get resources on how to keep their pet. So this is really important when we think about our internal terminology in our websites. We need to build for the user and we need to have content for the user, not for our own internal terminology. So you can use this. You can add lots of different comparisons. I also did foster. So foster a dog, foster a cat, foster a pet. You can see here that dog is always higher than pet or cat. But at the beginning of the pandemic, look what skyrocketed. Foster a dog skyrocketed. Not foster a pet or foster a cat. There was a small bump there. But foster a dog was the trend of what people were searching. You can change the time frames here. You can change the country as well. But this is a free tool that you can go crazy with and have a lot of fun with and start to understand what phrases people are searching so you can get those on your website. Now, if you want to do an audit of your website, there's a free extension on Chrome called SEO Minion. And I actually did this on Austin Pets Alive, so I'll explain while it's playing. You basically turn, this extension on, and you can see all sorts of things like your URL, your web meta title. Your meta title can be up to 60 characters, and you can see here that Austin Pets Alive is only 25. So they could extend their meta title by another 35 words to make sure that they pop up in more searches by adding more keywords to that meta title. You can see your meta description as well, and you want to make sure lots of keywords are in that meta description. You can see what your Twitter card looks like. This is completely free, and you can run it on any website. So I actually looked at about 10 shelters yesterday just to see kind of what was going on. The other great thing is you can check all of the links on your page. So right now we can see on their main webpage, they have 223 internal links, and they have 33 external links, and it will even highlight all of those links. And then the next thing it can do is actually check for broken links. So we want to make sure when people come to our site, they're actually getting where they need to go if they start clicking around. So this checked, we've got 2 empty links because those are called modals, where when you click subscribe, it's not taking you anywhere. It's actually popping up a modal so you can fill in the information. And if you click those errors, you can click through the links. It'll show you 404 links. It'll show you redirects. It'll show you no domain links. So you can actually see external and internal links. And then if you scroll down, it will actually give you the list of all the redirects as well. So you could go to even like national pages, use this extension and see what's going on adoptapet.com and see what we're doing. The other really great thing about SEO Minion is you can actually look at the Google search and see what all the results are and start doing your own analysis there as well. So if we type in foster dog, we're going to get all these results, and you can see I can download all these organic results. So instead of trying to analyze what shows up on the page and where I show up and why I show up as an organization, if I download, I get this full list, and I can see the URL. So I can see the URL structure. I can see the meta title, which keywords SEO are looking in that meta title, and I can see the meta description. So I can start to see why different results are showing up because they probably have more keywords, right? And then this is that people also ask. So you can have your pages show up depending on how far down in the people always ask section. So you can download the results of people also ask to make sure that you're including those topics somewhere on your website. So you can see, do you get paid to foster dogs? Who knew people asked that question? I didn't know people asked about getting paid to foster dogs. So perhaps that's something you would want to add on your website when you're explaining about fostering. How much do foster parents get paid? Another question people ask around money. Can you choose what dog to foster? This can help you build out content on your website that's relevant so that you actually show up higher in the SEO. And the last slide I have is your homework and how you can get started. So the first thing you can do is add SEO Minion to your Chrome browser and start running it on web pages, taking notice of your URLs, your meta titles, and your meta descriptions. This is something you could easily have a volunteer do. And if you're not able to add extensions to Chrome, I would just find somebody who can, that's not restricted maybe by a county computer or a city computer or something like that, that is willing to actually do this work for you. The next thing you can do is to pick one program or service that you want to evaluate your online presence for. So this might be lost pet reunification, this might be supported self-rehoming, this might be foster. And then once you've picked that, is to use Google Trends to get a better understanding of what key phrases people may be searching related to that selected program service. So you could really go crazy here and just start picking, okay, let's pick 10 key phrases and let's see how those compare to each other to meet the user where they're at, to understand what they're searching so that our website shows up when they're interested in fostering a pet. You then would ask friends, family, and volunteers that are similar to your demographic to try finding your website for that service, try finding the information on your website, and to give you feedback. You have people all around you that use the internet every day, use them, ask your, volunteers that are in a certain age demographic, ask your parents, can you search my website and see if you can figure out how to find a lost pet, and get the feedback from them because they are internet users. And the last thing is consider recruiting a volunteer specifically for SEO and one specifically for your website. These are volunteers that could be anywhere in the world. You know, they don't need to be locally to actually use them. So I would say I would consider recruiting somebody who wants to help animals, wants to have an impact, but their expertise is in SEO, or perhaps they're even in college right now learning SEO, or they're taking online courses and they want to get better at it. Why not let them get better at it while they're making your website better? And that is the presentation. And I will happily share these slides with anybody.
Okay, wow. This is another mind blown moment. This is so important, and thank you. I know we're out of time. Just want to let everybody know we're going to continue this conversation about both of these presentations today on the Maddie's Pet Forum. If you're not on the Maddie's Pet Forum, it is so much is happening there. It's such a busy, active place. You can just go sign up today. And the best part, they have a phone app. So if you're not at a desk a lot, it's still really easy to use. You can just use it on your phone. And so we'll be continuing both of these conversations there. And next week, hope you can join us. We have a couple of tentative people signed up, but we'll be announcing that to speak, but we'll be announcing that later this week. And as always, if you have folks that you'd like to suggest speak on a call or have something really important that we all need to hear, please email me, Kristen.Hassan@American Pets Alive, or my colleague, Bobby Mann. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here and making July our biggest, most robust month ever. Hopefully we can beat that in August. So we will see you back here next week. Everybody have a great weekend.